Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon to those who are in the afternoon, and good evening for North America. We are very pleased to all have you here. We are almost ready. We are 3 minutes in advance, but I see that there is already some of you in present and expecting the content to be delivered. So thank you very much for being early. We really appreciate it. We have Karim and Philippe currently prepping, doing some push-ups to be ready for you guys. And again, thank you very much for being here this morning. We are obviously going to wait a few minutes to make sure that we have a maximum of people and to start on time. So in the meantime, I will mute myself. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to use the chat. You will also see in the chat that you have we are asking you a quick question on who you are. We want to know who we are speaking to, but also we want you to know who is present in the audience. We are expecting around 150 people this morning. So obviously between the different time zones, a lot of you may watch this webinar in replay, and it would be great. But obviously knowing who is a part of this session is going to be very useful for you and us. I'm treating myself to some coffee. Don't hesitate to do the same. Use Vend. Always good to know. I'm going to be joined by Karim Gharoual, who's our product expert, and Philippe just joining us. So we will go over a quick roundtable a bit later when I will be introducing everyone. Let's wait a few minutes because I see that there is a lot of people joining. Good morning, Sambasiva. Without surprise, I'm sure there is a lot of people are going to recognize both Philippe and Karim. Perfect. Thank you, Sambasiva. Bonjour Jean-Baptiste. Good morning, Enrico.
It's great to see old friends in the chat and in the presentation. So hello, everybody.
I think we will wait for a couple of more minutes and starting a bit late since the webinar will last for 1 hour at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. CET. Let's wait for a couple of minutes. We have a bit of time just to make sure that we have everyone when we start. As soon as we hit 40 people in the chat, and I think we are go. Let's start for now. We have a couple of minutes late, but at least we have quite a few people here, and we know that many of you will join us through a replay based on time zones. So what I wanted to say is, first of all, thank you. Thank you for being here and for listening and taking some time to listen to what we have to say. The focus today is to discuss what is intrusion detection for mobile network security. So I'm joined by Philippe Langlois, who is the CEO and founder of P1 Security, who will help us understand kind of the future of what IDS is coming about, and Karim Gharoual, who is a product expert here at P1 Security, and he's in charge of PTM and helping my team. I'm Pierre. I'm working in the sales department and helping my team to deliver some value to most of you guys. As I've told to some of you at the beginning, you have a quick poll in the chat. We are very interested in knowing who we are speaking to, and I think it could be valuable for you to know who is in the audience with us today. So obviously, do ask questions. Don't hesitate to interact with each other and with us. So my role here is to gather the questions and ask them at the right time during the presentation. So first, Karim will introduce a bit more what we are going to talk about, and the agenda is as follows. So talking about IDS and NDR for mobile network security and signaling networks. We will do a quick demo of our IDS system and discuss how we can implement it in some organization and what were some user stories around implementing IDSs for signaling networks. Then we'll have a quick Q&A, because obviously there may be some question based on your organization or the organization that you manage. And we'll have another question to all of you to prepare for the next step that will be introduced by Philippe. So Philippe is really going to help you look a little bit forward with the birth of the SVNO, so the secure virtual network operator, and going after for the next gen for 5G, obviously for non-standalone and standalone networks. We'll have 10 minutes at the end. So again, don't hesitate to ask your question. I will write them down, keep them for me, and then we'll answer them on the dedicated session on point 4 and point 7 for the Q&A. We are expected to finish this session around 10 a.m. tops. Potentially, you'll have 5 or 10 minutes to do some emails that will depend on you and your questions. Again, thank you very much for being here, and I will leave the conversation to Karim, who is going to introduce you to the topic of today.
Yes, hi everyone. So thank you, Pierre. Like he said, I will be introducing a bit the concept of IDS and NDR. In this age that we are all living in, communication plays a central role in all of our lives. So ensuring the security of the networks is obviously essential. And mobile networks have kind of become the backbone of our interconnected world. The bad news is that they are all constantly under the threat of malicious attacks. And this is why we are talking today about network detection and response, so NDR, and intrusion detection system, IDS, because these two are mandatory components in safeguarding the mobile networks. To understand the significance of these components, NDR and IDS, we need first to understand the vulnerabilities that are posed by signaling networks, such as the mobile networks that rely on SS7 or Diameter. And these protocols, they are initially responsible for facilitating the communication between network elements. Unfortunately, they have become targets for cyber criminals or even government agencies. And with the increasing sophistications of attacks, traditional security measures have kind of proven insufficient. This means that now we necessitate the implementation of robust detection and response systems. So NDR will involve the continuous monitoring of network traffic and the identification of anomalous activities. By analyzing a vast amount of signaling payloads, telecom signaling traffic, NDR systems have the capability to detect the threats. They can sometimes employ advanced machine learning algorithm, even behavioral analytics, All of this to identify patterns that may indicate a potential breach. The IDS are a critical component of NDR. And this is a component which is specifically designed to monitor and analyze network traffic for the signs of malicious activities. An IDS will basically operate by inspecting signaling packets and comparing them against a database of known attack signature or patterns of known attack signatures. And whenever a match is found, the system will raise an alert, which will enable the security teams to investigate and respond accordingly. These IDS that can be deployed at various points within the network infrastructures. This will include most of the time routers, switches, and in our case, for mobile networks, at the edge of these mobile networks. So they will provide a comprehensive coverage against potential threats. For mobile networks and signaling network that utilize protocols such as SS7 and Diameter, the NDR and IDS become even more crucial because these networks, they are all interconnected and they are all interdependent. They serve as the foundation for voice calls, text messages, and even data transfers. So any compromise in their security can have severe consequences. This can range from privacy breaches to service disruptions. So we could have, for example, geolocation of subscribers, theft of SMS, interception of phone calls, injections of malware in the mobile data, all of this. And these consequences impact not only the organizations which build this global mobile network, but also the millions of users relying on it for their daily lives. By implementing an NDR and IDS solutions, which would be tailored specifically for signaling networks, we can enhance the resilience of these critical infrastructures. And the ability to detect and respond to threats in real time ensures the integrity of communication channels and protect the privacy of millions of individuals. So at P1 Security, our case, we are developing PTM, which is P1 Telecom Monitor. And it is an intrusion detection system specifically designed to safeguard signaling networks. It would enable tracking and reduction of network misuse, providing comprehensive understanding of frauds and attacks. And as you can see, we have observed based on the deployment of our solution that the main concern for operators and regulators comes from the international perspective. Rightfully, most operators want to know if any hostile operations are attempted from their roaming partners. So you can see that we have 80% of our deployments that are done to monitor exclusively international roaming traffic. So an IDS, a signaling IDS like this one, would offer specialized coverage for telecom protocols like SS7, Diameter, and GTP-C. And once again, based on our knowledge, it seems that most operators are focused on the security of SS7 and Diameter network in priority. GTP-C is not as common. This can be explained by the fact that attacks often have a lot of requirements and the possibilities are more limited usually. But still, by focusing on all of these critical protocols, we can ensure that telecom operators have a comprehensive view of their networks and can identify vulnerabilities and potential threats always in real time. So one thing to add as well is that operators and regulators worldwide are pushing for effective subscriber protection against fraud and phishing over SMS, which happens a lot lately. And an IDS would be able to help on this topic as well. So by checking for hostile SMS content, for example, this would allow to notify a potential SMS firewall or a SMS center about malicious senders. And the operators can address vulnerabilities, preventing potential hackers from exploiting weaknesses inside the network. The key feature of an IDS is passive monitoring capability. It will silently observe the signaling links and constantly look for any attack attempts or an exploit. And thanks to the detection and flagging of suspicious activities as they occur, operators are fully empowered to respond to potential threats. One thing to note in the case of an IDS like PTM is that it will integrate into a bigger telecom security lifecycle. This is how we call it inside P1 security. And it will come alongside other tools such as a further, an auditor, and also a big vulnerability knowledge base. And this integration leads to a thorough understanding and coverage of the current picture of mobile network threats. The researchers from P1 Security also work in close relation with the GSMA, which would ensure the detection of attacks mentioned inside the reference documents such as FS11, FS19, and FS20. So yeah, all in all, an IDS is an extremely valuable tool for telecom and mobile operators because it provides monitoring capabilities, reactive threat detection, and proactive approach to signaling network security, basically. To do the analysis of SS7 diameter GTP-C traffic, the IDS needs to be placed inside the network, and it can happen at multiple points. Here we see just a really high-level overview of a mobile network. So the network that we want to secure is on the right, and on the left we see an attacker network. Inside these networks, we would have different equipments depending on which protocol we are considering. And yeah, if we talk, for example, SS7, we would see the HLR, some MSCVLR, some SGSN. If we talk diameter, we would see, an HSS, some MMEs, for example. It's not really what is important here. The IDS would rather be around the firewall or around the routing elements. So routing elements, we would have the STP, the diameter routing agent, the diameter edge agents, and the IDS can be placed before the firewall. When I say before the firewall, I mean that it will receive traffic before the firewall receives it. It can also potentially be placed after the firewall. So the position of the IDS will give different information to the security team in charge of addressing the issues. It's not what matters. What matters is that the IDS receive the complete traffic in both of these cases in order to have the complete data to analyze all these payloads and to give information on what are the threats maybe being exploited at the moment. SS7 firewalls, STP, diameter routing, and edge agents, they all serve as vital gateways to protect networks from malicious activities. And they act as the first line of defense, safeguarding sensitive information and ensuring the security of communication channel. So to maintain their effectiveness, rigorous quality assurance and quality checks are essential. Quality assurance would be a comprehensive approach to ensuring that all these key elements meet the highest standards in terms of performance, but also in terms of security. So this process often involves a series of systematic processes, including planning and testing to identify and rectify also any potential issues or vulnerabilities. The continuous monitoring is a huge part of quality assurance. While subjecting the firewalls and routing agents to simulated scenarios can be a good way to mitigate some of the risk, it is not exactly mimicking real-world usage and all attack vectors. So through the use of an IDS, the real-world traffic is giving you information on the current state of your network. Vulnerabilities can be identified and addressed, ensuring that the system can withstand a wide range of threats. A key feature of an IDS is the ability to notify not only for attempted attacks, but also for the exploited ones. So not all attacks are exploited. Sometimes it is only an attempt, and the network will successfully mitigate the threats. Such information is crucial for quality checks because you can easily identify any failure of a firewall in blocking hostile traffic. And obviously, not all raised alerts are equals. As an operator, your main goal is to secure your own infrastructure and own subscribers first. So you would be more vigilant to these ones. And instead of putting yourself in a position of deploy and pray, you are now taking proactive measures to stay ahead of attackers. Operators can identify quickly any deviation from established standards or security best practices, enabling them to take corrective actions promptly. If some filtering policies can be evaded, you would know about it. In 2023, a lot of network elements are capable of implementing filtering policies and security mechanisms. It's no longer the job of only the firewall. This is why, depending on where the IDS is positioned inside the network, you could gather more or less information on the behavior of different nodes. Something to add as well is the fact that telecommunication industry regulations and standards also, they mandate quite a robust security measures to protect customer privacy and data. And by implementing comprehensive quality control processes like this ones, operators can ensure compliance with all these regulations, avoiding penalties and reputational damage as well. So the goal now would be to show you a bit what an IDS looks like. So we are P1 security. So in my case, I will show you how PTM looks like. So I will just simply share my screen. And so if you log into PTM, this is the first thing that you will see. I will not dig right away into this dashboard. I will come back to it, don't worry. But the first thing I want to make sure is that you understand the context of this. So, okay, so sorry, apparently I'm not logged in. Give me a moment. Yeah, so PTM usually not really something that is accessible on the web. You know, you would rather see something that is at the operator side. Only the guys that have access to the internet network would be able to see this kind of web UI. Okay, it's not. It's something that is really, you want to make sure that you keep it for yourself. So yeah, here we go. So like I said, we log in, we end up onto a dashboard. What we want to know first is the context. We have, in our case, a demo. So all the traffic that you will see is something that is simply generated on our side. And it's, in our case, a license for SS7 and Sigstrom. So if it was deployed at a real operator site, the goal for this operator would be here to monitor the international traffic, so traffic happening with the operator and the roaming partners, and to make sure that nothing malicious or hostile is happening. So now we can come back to our dashboard. This big dashboard is just a collection, basically a summary of all the events that have been witnessed by an IDS like PTM. When I say events, I mean alerts. I have talked about attempted attacks, also exploited attacks. This is the events that I am talking about. So this dashboard is actually, you can customize it however you want. So this is just one version that we chose to present today. You know, we have some interesting graph that we can look at. For example, let's take this map here. Let me just zoom in a bit. We can see here, for example, that we have an attacker map. So where are the attacks coming from toward this operator? We see that in Europe, something is happening from France, from Italy. Here in Asia, we have Russia doing some stuff. Central America is as well seems to be doing some malicious attempts. And yeah, that's a kind of representation that you can have. If we take another one, for example, the GSMA categories, we would be able to see all the attacks, the number of alerts that have been raised, and they will be separated into GSMA categories. So we can find the category 1, category 2, category 3. We have one specific here, which is P1 Sec category X. So yeah, when I say category X, basically it's just a classification that we have internally. You know, sometimes we have test cases. Like I said, we have a big telecom security lifecycle. So we are aware of quite a lot of things in mobile networks. Sometimes we have detection cases that don't really fall into the GSMA category, not really included inside the FS11 documents in our case because we are in SS7. So that's, that's what is category X. So that's a dashboard. Like I said, you can customize it however you want. But what are all these events displayed? So to understand a bit more about the events, let's check out the event page. Basically, here you will see, all the events that have been detected lately. And if we take the first one, so there is a VID. So don't care too much about this. VID is actually, something internal to P1 security. We have a big knowledge base. So let's check it out quickly. We have this entry inside the VKB. So VKB, vulnerability knowledge base internal to P1 security, but offered as a service as well. You have a description of what is the attack, and technical description. You get all the context of the attack, the recommendation, and basically the impact of the vulnerability. This is not a VKB presentation, so I will not spend too much time on this, but this seems to be the event that was detected. So here, an external map ATI message was sent, which is hostile. So if we take this event, this specific event, you would see a lot of fields. This field, they give details, they give context about what is the event, what has been collected in regard of these events. Some of the fields here have been used to say, okay, this is definitely something hostile happening, but we have more information than this. So for example, here we see that we have an attacker ID. So here it's a global title, seems to be coming from the Russian Federation. And the guy which is being attacked is inside the network infraS, so victim ID. You have here an MSI at the end, so the phone number of the victim. And all of these fields, they are the one on which you can base yourself in order to make the graph that I showed you inside the dashboard. You can as well filter it. So for example, if we want to know, we wouldn't want to know all the attacks that are coming from the Russian Federation, then we would be able to filter and get all the attacks that have been detected. Some of them are only detected and some of them have been successfully exploited. So the network has responded and has been impacted by this attack. The good thing to know is that these events, so you can see the format as JSON as well if you want. But what I want to say is that here I showed you the dashboard, which is internal to PTM, because obviously it's nice to have a visualization of all these events. But what actually happens in most cases is that as an operator, you have already SIEM systems in place. So you could definitely, most IDS will just simply export this data and send them directly to the SIEM tool, which would allow to aggregate all the information at the same place. You can leverage the already existing infrastructure. So that's a nice thing. Maybe a last thing that I want to show you is what is the coverage of PTM. So in our case, we have a license related to SS7, the test cases that you see in green. So like previously here, the ID is just the ID inside the VKB, the vulnerability knowledge base of P1 security. And you would be able to see which are all the coverage of your tool, what can be raised, what is covered, what is not covered. So you see that some of them, for example, here in Diameter, obviously it's in red because it's not included in the license. We are here analyzing SS7 traffic, so it does not make much sense. That's basically it for how PTM will look like, what it is, how an IDS usually is in place inside the network. And that's it for this demo on my side.
Thank you very much, Karim. It was super clear. I almost understood everything. Jokes aside, thank you very much for sharing us, how IDS and NDR are actually working in operator side. But I see, and most of you, I'm going to share with you the result of the poll. But as you can see, there is a really wide array of people in the audience. So it's really interesting to have all your point of views, and potentially you are seeing IDSs as with a different point of view. So your questions are really valuable. Do ask them in the chat if you need. Right now, since we are going to talk about Philippe's side, so more forward-looking type of question, we have another question to ask you. So I'm going to add a quick poll on the chat for you around 5G SBI firewall and SCPP filtering policies. So if you have some answers to share, please provide them. So it's always very useful for us to have some information. This poll will remain on the chat until the end of the presentation of Philippe. I'm just going to have a quick overview. Philippe has been answering the SIP question from Silke, so I think it's quite understood so far that we don't have SIP for PTM on our side. But obviously, if there is other questions, we are more than happy to answer them. What we do know is that on your context, the context of your client, the context of the operator that you manage as regulators, contexts are specific, are unique. So if you want us to take some time, we're more than happy to answer any question that you may have and go into the confidentiality that it deserves. And sometimes the chat with 50 viewers and potentially 100 more in replay, it's not the best place. We'd be happy to have that chat. So I think we can move forward. Philippe, if you're ready, take it away.
Oh, great. Well, thank you very much. So the goal next is to look into what is coming for us. So in telecom and mobile, what we see is that, of course, we are transitioning into 5G, but a big part of the movement is actually coming from the enterprise side, where they're looking as 4G and 5G as an alternative to Wi-Fi for their big site deployments, meaning airports, mining sites, highways, etc. So there's this big tendency, but also there's a tendency going towards the security services by operator to enterprise. So we see that we are going even more enterprise-centric. And let's start with that and see how intrusion detection is now contextualized in the security offering from the operators for enterprise mobile security. So if we look at it, right now, what's happening is that for many enterprises, what we see is that their view on their mobile security is actually quite reduced. They have SIEM and basically security information and event monitoring systems that enable them to see what happens overall for enterprise security. But this is not connected to what happens for their mobile fleet and their subscribers, their employees that are targets. So we have big examples that we detected with PTM in the past, where big sales team were impacted by geolocation and even denial of service to knock them off the network while they were in negotiation phase for big contracts. So this is super important for enterprises to know what's happening for the security of their employees. And what we've seen is that in the past, it was more MNOs, mobile network operators, that were looking at the signaling with intrusion detection systems such as PTM in order to fix signaling root causes, to set up filtering, to have knowledge of SIEM, of threats coming in their SIEM. And now it's not only really the MNOs that are interested. And it started really with big ministries of interior and defense asking the local operators to provide them with knowledge about the attackers. And gradually it went to sensitive enterprises like defense enterprises were then aware that this kind of service existed. And now we see that there's a need for a less artisanal, a less more industrial solution for this kind of services. So basically, it means that there's maybe tens of security vendors that are offering through white labels, through MNOs, some security services that in the end benefit to government, to enterprises, but also to private 4G and 5G deployments. So we've seen, for example, some MNO leveraging their expertise in security for mobile operator to say, oh, we can help private 4G and private 5G deployments. And what's really interesting here is that not only they need information about detection, what's happening on the network, but they need to cover the whole chain that is happening in security, from protection to even before that, identification of the threats and training, but also down the line in this life cycle, in this security life cycle, to be able to respond and recover from attacks. And this is super important for enterprises because they really recognize that they had a dark spot and on the mobile area, and mobile cannot be a dark spot for security for enterprises. Now, one big area that is coming up, and we see a lot right now, is that the focus is on 5G. And here what is interesting is that not only these needs were important for operators, but also enterprises are starting to get their private 4G and planning their private 5G deployments. And what that means is that many of these security needs are starting to appear for enterprises on their own micro network. So in a way, what we see is that enterprises are becoming mini or micro operators. And therefore, we are leveraging this knowledge we gained with operators in basically in the 5G domain. So, and there was a question already. So do you see private networks that connect to public networks in roaming style? So actually, yes, that's an offering from existing vendors, but we didn't see that in production. What we see is more connections through normal SIP gateways, etc., and not really, and then to, of course, to internet, which is a source of problem because it's a perspective in terms of attack. But we'll see a bit more of this possibly in the next slide, Silke, if you will, on the PTM for 5G. So as I was saying, really the key here is to understand that now we have many more. Oops, sorry, it seems that my slide disappeared. I clicked on the wrong button, I guess. So what we see with PTM for 5G is that there's many more threat sources now. And threat sources are not only coming from roaming, but they can come from anything. And nowadays, the network functions need to be also included in the threat models as a potential source of threat. So one thing that's helping in terms of awareness is that we've seen the SolarWinds supply chain security compromise in the past, where SolarWinds basically was compromised and had some backdoor inserted into the software that was used then to breach companies like Microsoft, etc. And what we see is that with 5G, there's this knowledge that the attacks are not going to be only internal. Not only external, they can be internal too. So that means that we need to have a new way, a new paradigm to protect the 5G networks. And this paradigm is highly distributed, meaning that the detection cannot happen like with SS7 and Diameter and GTP-C and SMSs with the previous PTMs with the network boundaries. It needs to happen on the network boundaries internally, but as an egress mechanism too. What we mean by egress is really monitoring not only the incoming attacks, but monitoring also what is leaked to the external world. And of course, with GDPR and all these new regulation, even in the US, there's a lot of pressure to have control on this and to know the extent of the leaks when they happen. So a good way to do that is to have basically the heuristic to detect known attacks, and we leverage the vulnerability knowledge base of P1 security to do that. We leverage all what we've seen from the audits of previous 5G networks with either expert audits or PTA-based audit with vulnerability scanning audits. But it's not sufficient. What we've seen is that every 5G core we've seen from vendors is first using the APIs in quite a specific ways and using other APIs. And what we need is to have a specific profile for each network function. Now, we'll see that there's challenges there because the concept of IP addresses quite disappeared in a Kubernetes cluster. What is more important was labels and tags, and what basically image was based this network function on. So that means that we need to do profiling with machine learning, but machine learning is, I would say, a double-edged sword in the sense that you can hurt yourself with by having really non-significant detection of telecom event and not security events. So there's a lot of work that's been going on in order to do feature engineering. That means coming up with data that signifies something at the security level. Another challenge is that the operator choice of deployment is huge, meaning that some operator will have choice of deployment not only for their 5G network, which will affect the way it behaves, but also the way they want to deploy security into their 5G networks diverges a lot between operators. As you know, between tier 1 operators and tier 3 operators, first, there's a big difference of focus and budget. But not only there, some operators will say, in case of spike of production, of number of subscribers coming in and with a huge spike in traffic, then we don't care if there's security detection. We want just to have production to go on. Some other deployment choices of operator will be whatsoever we want to have detection. If there's a spike in traffic, it's okay that security takes some capacity out of the core network. Then some operators will say, well, what's important for me is to actually get detection, but not touch the base images of the system. So we see that there's a big heterogeneity of 5G networks, and also there's a different focus. Some are focused only in the long-term future with SEP and basically detection at the edge of the network. But some people are already investing, especially tier 1s, of course, and focusing on baselining and analyzing what is the security behavior of each network function. And HTTP2, which is the basis of core network operation in 5G, is not enough. What we see is that there's a system component and there's a 5G specific component where there's 5G protocols, especially in the RAN network, which needs to be detected. There's also miscellaneous protocols, for example, for LI, which still have some proprietary things that needs to be monitored too. So what we see is a big tendency with 5G, where it's not enough to monitor only on the signaling level. You need to monitor and correlate with user plane and also with the system behavior. That means how the underlying infrastructure works and how it is related to the security operation. Now, that's exactly what we are going to see in the next slide, is that, let me click on it, is that what we've seen is most of the 5G cores we've been auditing and deploying on are based on Kubernetes. And in Kubernetes, there's once again a double-edged sword in the sense that it's very easy to instrument, and at the same time, it's very complex. So the sum of things that needs to be managed from a security perspective has really increased a lot. And at the same time, there are many more connection points to which PTM can connect in order to detect events, to collect data, to collect logs, to collect signaling, etc. And here, what we see is that really the consequence of 5G and Kubernetes is that not only we have, how to say, a different technological environment and a need to be inserted everywhere, but also that PTM and intrusion detection system in general must be able to govern their own integration lifecycle into the 5G infrastructure. What that means is that there needs to be discoverability for all the cluster deployment. So I would say it's more granular with OpenStack deployment, but with Kubernetes, really, we can go to the macro detail and macro level. And what's really important is to be able to have a lifecycle that makes PTM operate at the periphery of Kubernetes components. And one component can be a single master node, a single network function, but still it needs to be deployed by PTM itself, which means that the lifecycle component is really key in order to have this embedded instrumentation and discoverability of the product. And there's a question of perimeter security with Open RAN from Silke. It's actually the same. If you've seen the previous slide here, we address core network detection and radio access network detection in the same way, because in the end, it's still basically a Kubernetes deployment, and it's still network function, and it's still how we can instrument these and detect variation in either their baseline or in the traffic with specific security-oriented detections. Now, really here, this instrumentation of the network is quite important in order to have and preserve the operator objectives. Do they want to preserve production at all costs, or do they want to have no impact, what we call zero touch, on the system integrity, meaning they can't modify the system image from Nokia, Ericsson, ZTE, Huawei, and all the Mavnia and all the vendors? Also, do they want to have direct connection with their automated response, either directly with playbooks or with SOAR system, security orchestration, automation, and response? And then there's an educational side to it. What we've seen, and we've seen that not only with PTM, but also during the 5G trainings on security, is that operator needs to deal with a new paradigm to defend their network. And it's not only about the product, it's understanding, for example, that IP addresses are irrelevant, and you can't really manage a Kubernetes system with only knowing about the IP addresses. You need to have other things in order to really qualify the security of your network. Also, to understand that with 5G, in most of the core we've seen, the filtering has been commoditized, meaning that you can filter at so many levels that it's really not too much about setting up the filter, rather than knowing where and what filter to set up. And that, once again, goes back to governance and having a clear overview, having a clear dashboard of what's happening, and putting in place some response that can be either automated or manual, depending on, once again, on the operator deployment preferences. Now, what we see now is that this is converging. We see that many operators, but also many enterprises, are converging into the same direction. One thing that is quite interesting is that, for example, the deployment preferences of private 5G and private 4G operators for enterprises are, how to say, a bit different from tier 1 operators that are a bit different from tier 3 operators, but all go in the same direction. And this direction, and I'm going to use that if I may, is first to understand the nature of differences between normal mobile traffic, mobile signaling traffic, and malicious signaling traffic. And that's why the deployment phase in itself is a security improvement, because you know about things about your network that you didn't know before. And you're more able to fix the root causes in the signaling, in the configuration of network element and network function that will mechanically, how to say, reduce attacks and reduce frauds on the networks. Also, as I said, the filtering is becoming increasingly commonplace, being done at STP, at DRA, at SCP for 5G, or even on the individual policy that is deployed for all network function. And what we serve as here as security in general is a kind of quality assurance that enable you to verify in real time that security constraints are being preserved, and that we are aligned on the security policy, and the security governance is actually informed by the signaling domain and by the mobile networking operations. Also, really here, it's really interesting to see the push from enterprises that come and say, okay, now I want to have some information about the attacks coming to my users, and I'm ready to pay for it. And then that transforms security from a source of costs for the operator into a source of revenue. And that is so important for many operators that are now facing basically a lot of challenges. In terms of 5G, definitely I could talk and we could go into many details and show you products, etc., in order to go in there. But definitely it's something for a deep dive session that we'll be able to do. But what I wanted you to get out with is to understand that the security model of 5G is a bit different. It needs to be a bit more overarching. It needs to integrate things that we didn't look into in the past. And it needs also to be managed by the product, by the security product itself. And we are going to see that not only from operators, but we are going to see deployment of 5G private network from enterprises that from day one are using security because basically they care for it. So thank you very much. I'll let Pierre go on with the final question, interaction, and conclusions. And definitely thank you for being present on this webinar.
Thank you very much, Philippe. So the conclusions were masterful, and I wouldn't dare go after you on conclusion on telecom security. But yes, as you were saying, thank you very much. We do have 10 minutes left on the webinar, so if someone has a question that he wants to share in the chat, we are more than happy to discuss it and use that platform to engage with Karim and Philippe. If not, then it was a pleasure to have you all. We are also thanking all the people that are going to watch on replay. We know that it's difficult to connect with all of you. We are lucky enough to work worldwide, from North America to Southeast Asia, so really the full worldwide diagonal. But if we can help you in any way, do not hesitate to contact us. It's a tough subject, and experts are difficult to find. Is there any questions that we could take? We're going to stay a couple of minutes, just in case someone wants to have a quick chat. But thank you to our amazing speakers. We're perfect today. And for those who are still with us, do know that that webinar series is just the beginning. We want to engage more with you. We want to hear more about you, and we want to provide some content on our expertise. And so we will have new webinars coming up in the next few weeks.
And thanks to everyone who sent me messages I see coming on my screen and SMSs. So I respond to you and after the webinar. And don't hesitate to contact us on the deep dive. Definitely, there's a lot of content. We try to stay very high level there. And if you have a bit of tech envy, there's plenty of content we can share with you.
So your question was, how about license on P1 security? Can you explain it? Philippe, I don't know if you have an idea here.
So the licensing of PTM is typically a year-by-year license that enable you to basically govern your costs and is adapted to the perimeter you choose. So that means that if you're having only a focus on SS7 and Diameter and don't want to have a license on 5G because it's not a production yet, then basically you govern this. What we see also is that we see adaptation to the kind of environment. So people are right now doing a lot of intrusion detection testing and configuration on their test bed. So it's different licenses from production. I hope, Wayu, that this answers your question.
Well, in that case, we all have 9 minutes back to deep dive in our email inboxes. Thank you all again, and hopefully we can connect soon.
Yeah.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.